Let my mother go. The small girl's voice cracked through the packed courtroom like breaking glass. Everyone turned. Gasps rippled across the rows of suits and badges. The 12-year-old stood trembling in the aisle, tears streaking her face, finger pointed straight at the judge on the bench. I'll heal your deaf son right now, if you let my mother go. Judge Brooks froze, gavel hovering midair. His little boy, Aiden, sat quietly in the front row, oblivious, coloring on a courthouse notepad. The prosecutor shot up. Your Honor, this is outrageous. But the girl was already moving, pushing past the bailiff, small hands clutching a pair of tweezers and a magnifying glass like weapons. Get away from my son, the judge roared, half rising. She didn't stop. She dropped to her knees in front of the confused 7-year-old, tilted his head gently toward the light and whispered, It's okay, Aiden. This won't hurt. The courtroom erupted, shouts, chairs scraping, security rushing forward. Then she slid the tweezers in. Careful. Deeper. A collective breath held. One slow, deliberate pull. A long black wriggling bioengineered parasite landed in her palm, still twitching. Aiden blinked, rubbed his ears, and whispered, voice raw and brand new. Daddy, what's that sound? The judge's face went white. The girl looked up, eyes burning, holding the glistening creature for the entire room to see. Now do you believe me? Before we continue, I want to speak to you for a moment. If stories like this remind you that kindness still exists, if they make you feel something real in a world that's getting louder and colder, then I'd love to have you here with us. This channel isn't just videos, it's a tiny corner of the internet where good people come together. Where we believe in second chances, in hope, and in humanity. And right now you're early. You're part of the very first people building this family with me. So if you want to grow with us, if you want more stories that touch your heart, go ahead and subscribe. It's free, it supports the channel more than you know. And it tells me that there are still people out there who believe in kindness just as much as I do. If you have subscribed to this channel, I can officially say welcome to the family. Washington, D.C., the city where secrets are currency and power wears a suit and tie. From the outside, the E. Barrett Prettyman Federal Courthouse looks like something straight out of a history book. Tall columns, polished stone, American flags snapping in the wind. But inside those walls, real lives hang in the balance every single day. Today the courtroom was packed. Reporters in the back row, lawyers shuffling papers, bailiffs standing like statues. Up on the bench sat Judge Harlan Brooks, one of the toughest federal judges in the district. He'd handled everything from terrorism cases to corporate fraud, always calm, always fair, never afraid to make the hard call. To most people in D.C. he was untouchable. But Harlan Brooks had a weakness no one in that room knew about, except maybe the quiet little boy who had been showing up in the front row for weeks now. 7-year-old Aiden Brooks was coloring a picture of a fighter jet, his crayons moving carefully across the page. He didn't look up when people talked. He didn't react to the rustle of papers or the low hum of voices. Aiden had been completely deaf since he was 2 years old. It happened suddenly on a sunny Saturday hike at Great Falls Park, just outside the city along the Potomac. One minute he was laughing and splashing in the shallow water, the next he was burning with fever. By the time they got him to Children's National Medical Center, the damage was done. The top doctors in the country, specialists from Johns Hopkins, Walter Reed, even the National Institutes of Health, ran every test possible. MRIs, hearing exams, genetic screening. Their answer was always the same: a rare, aggressive inner ear infection that destroyed the nerves. Irreversible. Permanent. No surgery, no implant, no miracle cure. He's a bright boy, they told Harlan. Sign language, strong schools, he'll thrive. But thriving wasn't the same as hearing his dad say, I love you, out loud. At home in their row house on Capitol Hill, life revolved around silence. No music playing during dinner. No loud cheers during Capitol's games on TV. Harlan learned sign language fast, hired the best tutors, turned their house into a world Aiden could navigate. But every night, when he tucked his son in, Harlan carried the same heavy guilt. What if I'd gotten him to the hospital sooner? What if I'd never taken him on that hike? It wasn't the official National Take Your Child to Work Day anymore, that had been back in April. But the federal courthouse was running a month-long Junior Justice Days program for kids of judges and court staff. A civic education initiative. Kids could come in on designated days throughout the trial season, shadow their parents, watch open court sessions, learn about the Constitution, and even participate in mock trials. Harlan had signed Aiden up for as many sessions as possible. He wanted his son to feel part of his world, to understand what Dad did all day, even if Aiden couldn't hear the arguments or the bang of the gavel. That's why Aiden had been in the courtroom several times over the past few weeks, sitting quietly with a courthouse educator who knew sign language, coloring, asking questions with his hands, and yes, subtly rubbing his ears now and then, like something itched deep inside that he couldn't quite reach. Across the aisle at the defense table sat Rosa Mendoza. Rosa was 42, a single mom who had come to the United States from Mexico when she was just a kid. She became a citizen the right way, worked hard her whole life, and raised her daughter alone in a small apartment in Columbia Heights. For 5 years she'd been a night shift cleaner at Apex Defense Solutions, a government contractor lab tucked away in Southwest D.C., not far from the buzzing restaurants at the wharf. The lab worked on classified projects for the Department of Defense. Next-generation surveillance tech, the kind of stuff that keeps America safe from threats most people never hear about. Rosa's job was simple and invisible. She came in after hours, badge scanned, uniform on, cleaning carts rolling quietly through hallways lined with locked doors. She mopped floors, emptied trash bins, wiped down counters, never touching anything classified, never going near the secure cases. She was good at her job, always on time, always thorough. The kind of employee nobody notices, until everything goes wrong. One night, alarms went off. A high-security case in the bioengineering wing was found breached. Several prototype micro-devices, smaller than grains of rice, were missing. Security footage showed Rosa cleaning in the hallway outside the lab. Her badge logged her in and out at the right times. And when they searched her locker, traces of residue from the prototypes turned up. The government moved fast. Espionage charges. Accusations of selling national secrets to foreign powers. In a city like D.C., that's a career ender and a life ruiner. Rosa kept saying the same thing, "I didn't touch anything. I just clean." But who believes a cleaner when classified tech goes missing? Every single day of the trial, one person never missed a session. Rosa's daughter, Mia Mendoza. Mia was 12, small for her age, with dark hair and a ponytail and a backpack that was always stuffed with books. She sat in the gallery, quiet as a shadow, taking notes in a spiral notebook. Most people thought she was just there to support her mom. They were wrong. Mia was a science kid, the kind who spent weekends volunteering at the Smithsonian's Insect Zoo, who won every school science fair with projects on microbes and tiny creatures, who stayed after school in the library reading research papers way above 7th grade level. When her mom got arrested, Mia didn't fall apart. She started digging. Using public records, open-source science articles, and anything she could find online, Mia learned the truth about what Apex was really working on. Those micro-devices weren't just circuits and wires. They were bioengineered, living hybrid insects, genetically modified to carry tiny surveillance transmitters inside their bodies. Designed to crawl into places no camera could reach, record audio, beam it back, then die off harmlessly. Or at least, that was the plan. Then came the twist that stopped Mia cold. In leaked safety reports and declassified memos, she read about early test failures, specimens escaping containment, workers complaining of ear irritation after exposure, temporary hearing issues that were quickly hushed up. And every time Aiden had been in court these past few weeks, Mia had seen it, the same subtle ear rubbing, the same faint wince, like something was still buried deep inside. Mia's pen stopped moving. Her heart started racing. What if Aiden's rare infection 5 years ago an infection at all? What if one of those escaped living devices had found its way into the judge's own son, and stayed there? The trial was about to take a turn no one saw coming. The days blurred into weeks as the trial dragged on, each one heavier than the last. Mia Mendoza became a fixture in the gallery, row 3 left side, always the same seat. Backpack on her lap, notebook open, pencil moving like she was just doing homework. But her eyes missed nothing. After school, she'd race to the Central Library on G Street, the big one with the marble lions out front. She'd claim a corner table on the quiet floor, spread out printouts, and dive deeper into the rabbit hole she'd fallen down. Declassified DoD reports. Scientific papers on bioengineering. Articles about containment failures in high-security labs. The more she read, the clearer it got. Apex Defense Solutions wasn't just building tiny cameras. They were breeding something alive. Hybrid insects, part beetle, part machine. Bodies no bigger than a sesame seed, genetically tweaked to survive extreme conditions, carry microtransmitters in their abdomens, and crawl into places no human or drone could reach. The plan was genius on paper. Deploy them in hostile territory, let them record audio for days, then transmit everything back before dying off naturally. No trace left behind. But the early batches had problems. Big ones. Specimens escaping containment. Workers reporting crawling sensations in their ears after shifts. Temporary hearing loss in a few cases, quickly dismissed as coincidental infections. All of it buried in footnotes and redacted pages. Mia's stomach twisted the night she found the internal memo. Recommend increased funding to resolve mobility and lifespan issues. Minor escapes contained. No external exposure confirmed. Minor escapes. On weekends, Mia volunteered at the Smithsonian's Insect Zoo on the National Mall. She loved it there, the glass cases full of leafcutter ants, tarantulas and hissing cockroaches. But now every visit felt different. She asked the entomologist questions she'd never asked before. How long can certain beetles survive inside a warm, moist environment, like a human ear canal? What happens if something foreign gets lodged deep inside? The answers made her skin crawl. Back in the courtroom, the prosecution was building their case brick by brick. Witnesses in suits talking about badge logs, residue matches, national security threats. Rosa sat straight-backed at the defense table, eyes forward, but Mia could see the exhaustion in her mom's face every time the judge called recess. Judge Brooks ran the trial like clockwork, sharp questions, no nonsense. But Mia noticed the cracks. The way he'd glance at Aiden during breaks, his face softening for just a second before the mask went back on. Aiden came to most of the Junior Justice Day sessions. The courthouse educator, Ms. Rivera, a kind woman who knew ASL, sat with him, helping him follow along with picture books about the Constitution or letting him draw. He was always polite, always smiling, but Mia saw what no one else seemed to, the way he'd tilt his head sometimes or press a finger gently against one ear, then the other like he was trying to dislodge something annoying. It wasn't random. It was the same motion every time he was in court for more than an hour. One afternoon, during a sidebar conference the lawyers were having up at the bench, Mia overheard two clerks whispering near the railing. Did you hear the judge was at Apex 5 years ago? Some classified briefing on new surveillance tech. Right before his kid got sick. Yeah, weird timing. But they said it was just a coincidence, an infection from that park trip. Mia froze in her seat. Her pencil stopped mid-word. 5 years ago. Right before Aiden lost his hearing. She rushed back to the library that night and pulled every public record she could find on judicial visits to defense contractors. There it was, buried in an old calendar release. Judge Harlan Brooks, guest speaker at a closed-door demo for federal judges on emerging threats. Location, Apex Defense Solutions Bioengineering Wing. He'd been inside the lab. Weeks before Aiden's infection. The pieces slammed together in Mia's mind like magnets. What if one of those escaped hybrids hadn't stayed in the lab? What if it hitched a ride, on clothing, in hair, anywhere, and ended up at Great Falls Park that weekend? What if it crawled into a sleeping toddler's ear, and never came out? Mia's hands shook as she closed her laptop. She wasn't guessing anymore. She was almost certain. And then came the final blow, the one that turned suspicion into proof. Late one evening, going through her mom's old work emails, the ones the public defender had shared, Mia found a message Rosa had sent to her supervisor 6 weeks before the alarm went off. Found several small dark bugs in trash bin nearby a wing. Not regular pests, looked strange, almost shiny. Put them in sealed bag and left on security desk. Please advise. The reply? A single line. Received. Will handle. No further action needed. No follow-up. No investigation. Nothing. A week later the theft happened. And Rosa became the perfect scapegoat. Someone at Apex had buried her report. Covered up the escape. And when the prototypes went missing, because they'd crawled out on their own, they needed someone to blame. Mia closed the email and stared at the screen. Her mom hadn't stolen anything. She tried to warn them. And now, 5 years later, one of those living prototypes might still be inside Aiden Brooks's ear. Alive, dormant, blocking his hearing all this time. The trial was entering its final phase. Closing arguments were days away. Mia knew what she had to do. She just didn't know if anyone would believe a 12-year-old girl, even when she was ready to prove it right in front of them. The trial was reaching boiling point. Rosa stared straight ahead, hands folded tight. Mia could see her mom's knuckles turning white. In the front row, Aiden was coloring again. Today's picture was the Lincoln Memorial. Ms. Rivera, the educator, sat beside him, pointing out words in a picture book about the Constitution. Every few minutes, like clockwork, Aiden's small hand drifted up to rub one ear, then the other. Mia's notebook was full now. Pages of sketches, notes, timelines. She'd connected every dot she could find. She knew what was inside Aiden's ears. She knew how it got there. She knew her mom was innocent. But knowing wasn't enough. Not in a courtroom full of adults who thought a kid's word didn't matter. Dr. Grant wrapped up her testimony. The prosecutor turned to the judge with that smug look lawyers get when they think they've won. Your Honor, the United States rests. Judge Brooks nodded slowly, about to call for a short recess. That's when Mia stood up. Not quietly. Not waiting for permission. Her chair scraped loud against the wooden floor. Every head in the room turned. Mia's legs shook, but she walked down the aisle anyway, straight toward the front, backpack slung over one shoulder, notebook clutched in her hand. The bailiff started moving. Young lady, sit down. But Mia's voice rang out, small but clear as a bell. Let my mother go. The courtroom went dead silent. Then exploded. Gasp. Murmurs. A reporter in the back dropped his pen. Mia kept walking, eyes locked on Judge Brooks. I'll heal your deaf son right now, if you let my mother go. Chaos. The prosecutor shot up. Your Honor, this is contempt. Remove this child immediately. Defense counsel looked stunned. Rosa's mouth fell open, tears springing to her eyes. Mia, no. But Judge Brooks didn't bang the gavel. Not yet. He stared down at the girl standing defiantly in front of the bench, then glanced at Aiden. His little boy, still coloring, unaware of the storm around him. The judge's voice was low, almost broken. Young lady, what did you just say? Mia took a deep breath. Her heart felt like it was going to burst out of her chest, but she didn't back down. I said I can heal Aiden. I know why he can't hear. It's not an infection. It's those things from the lab, the ones that escaped. They're still inside his ears. Dormant. Blocking everything. The room went from chaos to stunned silence again. Dr. Grant's face went pale. The prosecutor laughed nervously. Your Honor, this is absurd. She's a child. But Harlan Brooks raised one hand. The room obeyed. He looked at Aiden. Then back at Mia. How do you know this? Mia stepped closer, voice steady now. Because I've been watching him. Every junior justice day he's been here. He rubs his ears the same way, the exact symptom in the lab exposure reports I found. The same way workers described before their cases got buried. She opened her notebook, held it up for the judge to see. Pages of printed articles, timelines, sketches of the hybrid insects. I know what they look like. I know how to get them out safely. I've practiced on models at the Smithsonian. I can do it right now, with doctors watching, whatever you want. Just, please, let my mom go. She didn't steal anything. She tried to warn them. Judge Brooks's hand trembled on the gavel. Everyone waited. You could hear a pin drop. Finally he spoke, voice rough like it hurt to say the words. Clear the jury. Call an immediate recess. Get medical personnel from Georgetown University Hospital here now, top ENT specialists. And, bring my son to the witness area. He looked at Mia, eyes searching. If you're wrong, this ends badly for you and your mother. Mia met his gaze. But if I'm right, Aiden hears today. And the truth comes out. The judge nodded once. Do it. Security moved in, not to remove Mia but to secure the room. Doctors were on their way. And in the front row, Aiden looked up, confused as his dad signed quickly. It's okay, buddy. Come with me. The demonstration was about to begin. Right there in federal court. With the whole world watching. The courtroom had never been this quiet. Not during opening statements. Not during cross-examinations. Not even when the espionage charges were first read aloud. Now every breath felt loud. The jury had been sent out. Spectators stayed frozen in their seats. Reporters' phones were confiscated at the door. No recordings, no leaks, judge's orders. In the witness area, a makeshift medical station had been set up in minutes. Two ENT specialists from Georgetown University Hospital stood ready in fresh scrubs, gloves on, portable lights and tools laid out on a sterile tray. FBI agents lined the walls, just in case. Aiden sat on a cushioned chair that had been brought in, feet dangling, looking around with wide, curious eyes. His dad knelt beside him, signing slowly, "This lady is going to look in your ears. It won't hurt. I'm right here." The boy nodded, trusting as always. Mia stood in front of him, small but steady. She'd washed her hands 3 times, put on gloves, and laid out her own simple tools beside the doctor's. A bright LED otoscope on loan from the hospital, sanitized fine tweezers, a magnifying lens and a clear specimen dish. One of the doctors, a gray-haired woman with kind eyes, leaned down to Mia. "We'll guide you if needed, sweetheart. But you say you know what you're looking for?" Mia nodded. "Yes, ma'am. They'll be deep, dark, segmented. Not moving much after all this time, but still alive." Judge Brooks's jaw tightened. He hadn't left his son's side. Mia took a slow breath, then smiled at Aiden. "Hi, Aiden. I'm Mia. Can you tilt your head a little this way?" He did, no fear in his face, just curiosity. She started with the left ear. The otoscope light clicked on. Everyone leaned forward. At first, nothing unusual. Normal canal, pink tissue. Then deeper. Mia's eyes narrowed. "There," she whispered. The doctors crowded in. One adjusted the portable monitor so the judge could see the feed. On the screen, a long black, segmented shape, thin as a thread, curled against the eardrum. Dormant but glistening faintly. Still alive after 5 years. A collective intake of breath. Dr. Grant, the Apex project lead, still in the gallery, went white as paper. Mia didn't hesitate. With the doctor's nodding approval, she switched to the tweezers. Fine, precise, the kind used for delicate insect pinning at the Smithsonian. One gentle insertion. A slow, careful grip. A steady pull. The first hybrid insect slid out, long, black, wriggling faintly as air hit it. It landed in the clear dish with a tiny plop. Gasps rippled through the room. Aiden blinked hard, rubbed his ear, and tilted his head like something had suddenly shifted. Mia didn't stop. Right ear now. Same process. Deeper this time. Second creature, identical. Out it came, twitching weakly in the light. The doctors sealed the dish immediately, labeling it evidence. And then, silence wasn't silent anymore. Aiden's eyes went huge. He looked around the courtroom like he'd stepped onto another planet. The hum of the air conditioning. The creak of wooden benches as people shifted. Murmurs from the gallery. His small hands flew to his ears, then his mouth. He stared at his dad. "Daddy." The word came out rough and used but real. Audible. Clear. "What's that sound?" Judge Brooks dropped to his knees, face crumpling. Tears streamed down his cheeks as he pulled his son into a fierce hug. "You're hearing me, buddy? That's my voice. That's everything." The courtroom lost it. Some people cried openly. Others whispered, "Oh my God." Rosa was sobbing at the defense table. But Mia wasn't finished. She turned to the bench, holding up her notebook. Now the proof. One of the doctors had already plugged the specimen dish into a portable scanner brought by the FBI tech team. Images flashed on the courtroom projector, magnified views of the hybrids, side by side with archived Apex prototype photos pulled from sealed lab records, subpoenaed on the spot. Exact match. DNA markers. Transmitter casings embedded in the abdomens. Serial numbers etched microscopically on the shells. The missing specimens. Not stolen. Escaped. And living inside a little boy's ears for 5 years. Dr. Grant tried to slip toward the exit. Agent stopped her cold. Mia looked straight at the judge. "My mom found some of these in the trash weeks before the alarm. She reported them. They ignored her, then blamed her when the escape got out of control." She held up the printed email chain. The one Rosa had sent, the one that had been lost until the FBI pulled the server backups minutes ago. Judge Brooks wiped his eyes, voice shaking with a mix of joy and fury. "Charges against Rosa Mendoza are dismissed. Immediately." He banged the gavel hard. "Bailiff, release her." Then quieter to Mia. "You didn't just save your mother today. You gave my son his world back." Rosa ran from the defense table, wrapping Mia in her arms as cameras flashed from the approved press pool. Aiden tugged his dad's sleeve, pointing at the gavel. That was loud. Harlan laughed through tears, the first real laugh in years. But the story wasn't over yet. There was still one more truth waiting to come out. The courtroom was still buzzing from the impossible. Two tiny black bioengineered creatures sealed in an evidence dish, twitching under the lights like something out of a nightmare. Aiden Brooks couldn't stop touching his ears, tilting his head this way and that, eyes wide with wonder. Every little noise was new. The shuffle of feet, the click of pens, the soft sob from someone in the gallery. He turned to his dad and grinned huge. "Daddy, your voice is deep." Judge Brooks laughed, a real broken open laugh as tears ran down his face. He signed and spoke at the same time, habit mixed with joy. "Yeah, buddy? That's me. Keep listening, you're gonna hear everything now." But the miracle wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the reckoning. Mia stood tall beside the witness chair, notebook open, voice steady even though her hands were still shaking from the extraction. "It's not over," she said. "My mom didn't steal anything. She tried to tell them the truth and they buried it." She turned pages for the whole room to see, printed emails, redacted reports she'd pieced together from public sources, photos she'd taken of lab safety posters during an open house. Step by step she laid it out. Mom found escaped specimens in the trash weeks before the alarm. She reported them just like she was supposed to. But the project was behind schedule, over budget. Admitting an escape would have killed their funding. She pointed to the evidence dish. "Those are the missing prototypes. They crawled out on their own. And when the higher-ups realized how bad it looked, they needed a scapegoat. Someone no one would believe over scientists in lab coats." All eyes turned to Dr. Evelyn Grant, the project director, still standing pale in the gallery. FBI agents were already moving toward her. Judge Brooks's face had gone from joy to stone-cold fury. "Dr. Grant," he said, voice carrying like thunder, "you're under arrest for obstruction of justice, falsification of federal records, and reckless endangerment. Bailiffs, take her into custody." Dr. Grant's mouth opened, but no words came. Handcuffs clicked. She was led away as cameras flashed from the approved press row. Then the judge turned back to Rosa. "Mrs. Mendoza, all charges against you are dismissed with prejudice. You're free to go. This court apologizes for the ordeal you and your family have endured." He banged the gavel one final time. Rosa stood, legs shaky, and ran to Mia. They crashed together in the tightest hug, both crying, relief, exhaustion, love pouring out. Outside, on the wide stone steps of the courthouse, the world was waiting. Cameras, reporters, bright DC sunlight. The story had already leaked. Impossible to contain something this big. Child heals judge's deaf son in court, exposes government cover-up. Headlines were writing themselves. Rosa and Mia walked out hand in hand, free at last. Judge Brooks followed, carrying Aiden on his hip. The boy was pointing at everything. The honk of a taxi on Constitution Avenue, the chatter of tourists, the rustle of leaves in the courthouse trees. "Birds, Daddy. I hear birds." Harlan kissed the top of his son's head, eyes shining. He stopped in front of Mia and Rosa. "I don't have words big enough," he said quietly. "You gave me my son back. And you gave this city a reminder that justice isn't always in robes." He shook Rosa's hand, then crouched to Mia's level. "You're the bravest person I've ever met, young lady. America needs more like you." But Mia had one more thing to say. She looked up at the cameras, then at the judge. "There's something else you all should know." The crowd quieted. "My dad, Carlos Mendoza, he worked at Apex 2 years ago. As a lab technician. He saw the early problems with these hybrids. The escapes. The risks. He tried to tell people. He wanted to whistle-blow." Her voice cracked, but she kept going. "They said his car accident was just bad luck. Brakes failed on the Beltway. He died when I was 6. She looked straight at Dr. Grant being led to a federal van. "But now I know, it wasn't an accident. He was trying to do the right thing, just like my mom." The reporters exploded with questions. The story just got deeper. Judge Brooks put a hand on Mia's shoulder. "We're reopening that case too. I promise you that." Months later things changed. Dr. Grant and 2 executives went to prison. The dangerous hybrid program was shut down for good. New safety laws got fast-tracked on the Hill, whistleblower protection stronger than ever. Aiden started 2nd grade hearing every word, laughing at recess, singing along to songs in the car, calling, "I love you," across the house without signing. Rosa got her job back with back pay and an apology. But she chose something new, advocating for immigrant workers in D.C. And Mia? She became a national name. Science fairs? She swept them. Colleges sent early acceptance letters before she even started high school. The Smithsonian gave her a junior researcher badge. She started a foundation for kids who love science but don't have the resources. But most days she was just Mia, riding the metro home to Columbia Heights, doing homework with her mom, remembering her dad. Because sometimes the quietest voices, the ones no one expects, end up echoing the loudest. In a city built on power, a 12-year-old girl proved that truth doesn't need a title. It just needs someone brave enough to speak it. And on quiet nights, when Aiden Brooks fell asleep to the sound of crickets outside his window for the first time, his dad would whisper a thank you to a little girl who changed everything. If this story moved you the way it moved me telling it, hit that like button, drop a comment telling me your favorite part, and share it with someone who needs to hear that courage comes in all sizes. Let's get this to 2 million views and remind the world. Justice isn't always blind. Sometimes it just needs a kid with a notebook to open its eyes.